Okay, let's get started. So those who don't know me yet, so I'm an assistant research professor here at WINLAB, started last fall. So unlike advertised, we're actually going to talk about two topics today. So one of them is the expectation, purpose, understanding people's mental models via crowdsourcing, and the other one is this new project that we're just about to start, which is about crowdsourcing location constraint tasks for local communities. Now, I personally have a human-centric research agenda. So my work is about applying soft paternalistic nudges to human behavior with computer systems. So what does that mean? So it just means that I want to change people's behavior when they use computer systems. Sometimes it's related to using the computer system, sometimes it's related to other kind of behavior as well. How many of you are familiar with crowdsourcing, so conceptually? So not many. Okay. So crowdsourcing has become really popular during the recent years. So there are lots of successful businesses using crowdsourcing as well. And we can divide it to different kind of models. So we, for example, have aggregators, crowdsourcing. An example is Yahoo Answers. So if you're looking for a problem, you can post it on Yahoo Answers, and people might be helping you by answering to your question. There's distributed innovation, crowdfunding, for example, for with microloans to third world countries, ideas, content rating, data sharing, cycle sharing, competition platforms, and services marketplaces. One of the most successful marketplaces is Amazon Mechanical Turk, or otherwise known as mTurk. So this is an mTurk is an artificial intelligence, or at least that's how they brand it. So what you do is that you can post tasks that can be completed and verified online, and then you have people who are doing that for money. So Amazon takes a small cut of whatever you pay for the workers, and so that's why they do this. What you can see here, I just took this screenshot an hour ago, that there's almost 170,000 hits, so these kind of tasks available at the moment. So it's really popular for people to posting tasks. And lots of these tasks don't cost that much, or don't pay that much, depending on which side you are. So for 5 cents you can get people to do surprisingly interesting tasks. Now I just gave you a little idea of what crowdsourcing means, and I'm going to start talking about the expectation and purpose. So this is joint work with my friends at Carnegie Mellon, so Jialou Lin, Sharia Amini, Jason Hong-Gorman Sadet, and Joy Zhang. This will appear in this year's UBICOM conference. So why are we interested in mobile app privacy? It's a huge issue. So the application market as of January 2012 are big. So both Android market and Apple Store have almost 500,000 apps each, and the apps have been downloaded there billions and billions of times. Now, what the apps do with your phones is not always clear. So this is some exploration by Wall Street Journal. So they have listed here in alphabetical order, and for example, very popular game, or perhaps one of the most popular games at the moment, called Angry Birds, requests your contacts, your location, and phone ID. One of the more controversial cases recently, which got a lot of publicity, is Pandora and Facebook applications. So Pandora is this popular application for listening music, and it also creates content automatically for you. So that if you install that application, it shares your location, gender, unique phone ID, phone number with advertisers, and there's a federal investigation going on Pandora's practices. But Facebook also does something which is potentially surprising. It uploads your entire contact list to their server, including their phone numbers. Now, why might Facebook do this? Any ideas?
Connect you to your friends on Facebook.
Yes, that's exactly so. Facebook purpose on the outset isn't really malicious, so they are trying to make you connect to your friends on Facebook, like you said, and that's why they upload the contact list. However, if you wouldn't want to do that, you have no choice. There are other examples. So lots of apps request web permission. So for example, there's this tiny flashlight LED which allows you to use your phone as a flashlight, requests internet access to your phone number. Backgrounds for showing background images on your phone, request your contact list, dictionary, location, and title quotes your location. Any ideas why, for example, these apps might be requesting your location?
Targeted ads?
Yes, targeted ads. So here is kind of a trade-off here. There's no free lunches. So if you download a so-called free app, it might be showing you and using your bandwidth to show you advertisements based on your location. Now,
just to add on that, there was an interesting calculation I saw recently. If you don't have an unlimited data plan and you regularly use your free app on your limited data plan, it actually costs you much more than if you had paid for the app beforehand.
Even if it's just a flashlight. Even if it's just a flashlight.
That's right, because all the data that's being sent out for these marketing purposes and the advertisements that's coming back is actually very substantial.
and since nobody anymore practically has a limited data plan, so that's something to think about. Now, here on the other side is an example of an Android permission screen. So if you install a My Tracks application from Google, it will ask from you that, well, actually, it will not even ask from you. So you have really no choices here. So it will state to you, as it says, this application has access to the following: your location, which is coarse or network-based as defined, fine GPS location, although in reality there is not much difference here. Read Google service configuration, full internet access, and your account information system tools. Now, the only choices you have here, as is in the case for all applications, that either you press OK and install the application, or you press cancel. Now, what you might be asking, although we know from research that most people are, but what do these permissions mean? So what is a coarse or fine-grained location? Since everybody is, or almost everybody here is from the School of Engineering, we might have more insights what these things mean. But if you think of lay people, they are likely to have much less ideas than even you have. Well, but the second question, why does the application need this permission, starts to be a much harder question. So, for example, why would application that what is MyTrack? So this shows your tracks on a map. Why does it need your full internet access? Well, I just answered it. So it needs your full internet access so it can send the GPS or the otherwise location let along the Google service, so Google will be able to show you on the map what your location. Yes.
So if you saw this app and like on your device itself, you turn off the location, does it still get it?
If you turn on your location, I'm not sure about this particular app, but usually what happens is you're just not able to use the features of the app. So for example, in this case, if you are not using location, you will not get anything, any useful use of the application. Some applications are more, let's say, robust in this way that you could even provide fake data to them, and it would well work. So for example, if you have an application that uses only your location to show you targeted ads, a modified version of the Android could provide fake locations to that app, and it will still work because it doesn't need the location for its core functionality. But in the case of MyTracks, the core functionality needs your location. And one really interesting question related is when does the app use this permission, which is not clear at all. So what we ask within this project is that, well, can we use crowdsourcing to figure out answers to these questions? And one of the motivations, which I already mentioned, is that almost nobody reads privacy policies. So this has been shown time and time again. So people don't read, if you have a website, privacy policy, end user license agreements. So especially Microsoft has really well trained us just to click through everything. So there is almost no useful thing happening if you say no to something. So you always say yes, yes I agree with this. You use a device at your home, consumer electronics device, they have some sort of privacy policy and user licensing agreement. If you don't say yes, you can't use the device. One of the interesting here is that, so we want to install app. That it's not our main task to read the privacy policy or the summary. It's boring, they're complex. So you have lots of things listed here. Even if you would know, since you're part of School of Engineering, some of these things, but maybe these start to be that what is it really using this for? And also it's not clear what is the benefit of reading this information, and it costs time to you. Now, crowdsourcing potentially can mitigate these problems that I just listed, but it's not. But what do we really crowdsource here? And we decided to go ahead with expectations and misconceptions. So this talk is about mental models. And as an example, what does a mental model mean? We all have them, and we have them about practically everything. So these are examples of doors. So on this, on the left side, you say, how would you open this door? Push. Yes, you push. So you have a mental model that if a door looks like this, then you should be able to push and open it. How about this on the right side? Pull. Yes, you pull. You have a handle, you pull it. So these are like really good shortcuts for opening doors. Unfortunately, even with doors, designers and implementers sometimes get it wrong. So you might have these kind of handles, pull handles installed in this kind of a door, and you're actually supposed to be pushing it, even though your mental model would be saying to you that you're supposed to be pulling it. Or you might have sometimes laboratories which by fire regulations in lots of countries need to be moving like this. So you can push or pull them, but they might have this kind of handle in any case. And you might not try to do this to open it, even though you're just supposed to be pushing it. So this is just like a really common example of mental models and possible misconceptions. Now, how this is related to design. So we have somebody designs a mobile application. In this case, is that, well, how do you intend the system to work? Then you have a user model that, well, how users think that the system works. And then you have an implementation of your design. And the user model is affected by your implementation and how they interact with the system and how the system gives them feedback. And now, ideally, the design model and user model should be aligned. But this, as is in the case sometimes with doors, doesn't always happen. Now, so this was like just a small example of mental models and design models. So what we want to do is apply the same idea for privacy. So compare what an application and what people expect an application to do, what the application actually does. And emphasize the biggest gaps, the misconceptions that most people have. So I'll just quickly show you this. So this is the end result of a user interface based on this analysis, where we can show that, for example, 95% of users were surprised that this app sent their approximate location to mobile apps providers. But I'm going to come back to this later and show you first how did we came up with this kind of a design, which our results indicate is better than the current one. But before that, still a bit more discussion about expectation and privacy. So privacy has been and comes up a lot of this discussion about privacy. One of the most famous cases probably in the United States is Katz versus United States, where the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution was evaluated by the Supreme Court, and they came up with this kind of a test that do people have test what is called reasonable expectation of privacy. And what is in this case means that if people have a reasonable expectation of privacy and police does something, then would look like a search, then that means a search in the sense of the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And then expectation also comes up in lots of other related work. However, our contribution is that we are operationalizing it and using it in design, while these are more legislative and also more kind of philosophical notes about expectations of privacy. So our study design, which I go through, is that we showed the crowd workers screenshots and descriptions of an app that has been published on, for example, the Android app market. We showed the premises only one at a time, and also those that are related to privacy. And the idea here is that if you're showed only one at a time, then you will focus on that task. So that with crowdsourcing, people's main task is to evaluate only this one permission compared to the situation where you're installing an app where your main task is to install the app and start using it. And we had two conditions which were evaluated between subjects. Expectation condition were shown to other participants, and other ones were purpose condition. So expectation, why do they think that the app uses this permission, and how comfortable were they with it? And purpose condition, we get an explanation based on the ground truth analysis we did ourselves, and asked participants how comfortable they were with this app requesting this permission. So we recruited participants of this with the Mechanical Turk service that I mentioned in the beginning of the talk, for controlling for cultural and language issues. We recruited people from the United States only. We filtered also our participants by asking them that what version of Android operating system they use. So we asked them to go use their phone, go to their settings, and then give this information to make sure that they actually are Android phone users. And like I mentioned, this was between subject studies, so one condition only, either expectation or purpose for participant. We chose 56 of the top 100 apps on Android app market, which request either unique phone ID, contact list, or location. So which led to total 134 of these kind of tasks. And then we had 20 participants each for one of these application research pairs. And this is how it looked like on Mechanical Turk. So we asked the participant, we showed them an example app, and we asked the participant to read carefully through the description of the app. And then we asked them, have they used that app before, yes or no? And then show either of the expectation condition or the purpose condition. So no participants saw both of them. And an example of the expectation condition is here, that, well, suppose you had installed this app, do you expect to access your precise location? And then what would it be using it for? And then the purpose condition is that, well, when we have the ground truth, is that, well, this is using your location information for targeted advertising. How comfortable would you be with this usage? So now I gave you a quick overview, so how did we study this? I'm going to start presenting some of the results so you can read from the paper more details. So for location data, with the expectation condition, people, for example, for maps application, were generally comfortable for asking the location. Similarly for gas buddy, because gas buddy is something that shows you the gas prices near your location. Weather channel shows you information about weather in your current location, etc. The other applications, like I mentioned already, Angry Birds or the flashlight, people weren't really expecting and comfortable for them to using your location. And an example of apps using contact list, people were not. These three examples where people were not comfortable using, and all these had a strong correlation. So this way we found out that, like, what people are expecting an app to use based on what the application does. Now, however, if we compare this, that we told them the purpose, what the application is new. So the expectation is that they wouldn't know necessarily beforehand what they're using for, but when we saw the purpose, then people in general were more comfortable when they knew what it was used for.
That's
Now,
what they do on an ingredient list
Right.
at the grocery store.
I'm sorry?
That's what they do in an ingredient list on the grocery store. Long chemical name, and they say this makes you live longer, or this keeps it from rotting.
Yes, although, yeah, so that is a good point. Although most things that I buy, I don't remember having this kind of
The ones that
explanation.
try to pretend that they're more ethical will say a preservative or something like that.
Yes. Yeah. So there is also, so that's a good point. So there's also related work where it's called privacy nutrition labels, which is designed for websites, and they are kind of doing the similar thing that you were just explaining for privacy purposes.
You already have an educated consumer base that's used to reading that sort of thing.
Sorry?
You have an educated consumer base that's used to reading that sort of thing.
Right.
So you're just mapping it to a different domain.
Right.
So one comment to that is the ingredients, they sort of also sorted based on what's the primary ingredient.
Absolutely.
Right.
Although they cheat a little bit when they say enriched flour, they list a whole bunch of stuff in there. But yes, it's in order of importance in some sense, which would be great to have here.
Yes, and that's exactly what it is supposed to be doing. So thanks for that, Rich. So we modeled the importance based on how many people were surprised that this application is requesting this, and also based on other related work, what are these really privacy sensitive permission requests. So what we also did is that we simplified these terms and then bolded it. So instead of talking about fine grain or coarse grain location, we have approximate location and precise location. And like I said, we focus only on permissions, so it's really important that those that affect privacy sorted by highest surprises, and then we had the threshold that we added this kind of sign that alert people in this. Now, we evaluated also this user interface designs of Mechanical Turk and compared to what Android has already. So we chose 5 mobile apps and used, excuse me, that were also highlighted in a previous study what they were doing. And we had the description, screenshots, and summary. And we asked people to answer questions about the app behavior, like I showed you already. Would you recommend this app to a friend? And again, had 20 apps per app and per condition. And in generally, our new privacy summary fared people. We had more accurate results that people understood better what the application is doing, and people were also faster in 2 of the 5 pages. However, they still spent a considerable amount of time reading all these descriptions. So in essentially, this indicates that the new privacy summary can be better than what we have already Android. However, the study might not be ecologically valid, which means that we haven't tried it in the real setting where people's purpose really is just to install the app. So if they just see this summaries for a few seconds and decide should I install or not, will this work better? But in this project we are building tools to help automate this crowdsourced analysis. So stepping back, I talked about one point solution of using crowdsourcing for privacy purposes. Now, and in this case, it was privacy as expectations for mobile applications. But maybe there are other uses for crowdsourcing for privacy and security. And that will I leave to you. So at this point, any questions of this part?
where is the Turk drawing its people from, and are they the same people that are picking up the app?
Well, so we controlled and cultural in that sense. We had people only from the U.S. And the other thing is that we don't know would they be the same people who picking up this particular app. But at least our participants were Android users, so they would be familiar using Android than the model.
But I can imagine that if you have the Turk would draw from one particular geographical or socioeconomic group, which would not be the same one that would be picking up the apps. So they would come to conclusions which would be culturally inconsistent.
So can you?
Yeah, you have somebody in China that's working on is doing gold farming essentially for your mechanical Turk there, and the apps are being purchased by lawyers in Washington D.C.
Yeah, but again we limited our participants to U.S.
Oh, I understand.
Yes.
That's what you're doing now.
Yes.
I'm just saying that it has because of the generic nature of the internet, and the way that it's going to be done, you have to question whether you can say something about who is actually, what crowds are evaluating it. If there are systematic errors in drawing people for the crowd.
Sure.
There could be systematic errors because you're drawing on the basis of who's got time and who's interested in doing this kind of work.
Sure. So in general, so mechanical Turk users are rather diverse. So we even have well, not in this particular study, but we have also lawyers at DC using it just for pastime, etc. So there are two kind of major groups of mechanical Turk, at least so far. So people in the U.S. you're using it for pastime and not really gaining any real income. And then people from India who are really using it to get an income.
It might have a very different idea about privacy.
Exactly.
How do you limit the study to the US?
You just click that only US participants, and they need to be able to participate in.
Is it limited in some way, or do they?
Yeah, so in mechanical Turk to participate, you need to have a credit card and an address in the US, so they use that. So if you would have a credit card and the credit card address would be in the US, yes, you could cheat it. They used to also have mechanisms before that you needed to have a US credit card, but that doesn't seem to work because I can use it also with my Finnish credit cards. Anything else, please?
So my question is crowdsourcing a practical way of doing this? Is there a time lag involved?
Yeah, so there is. I would say that's a great question. So yes, there is time lag involved, and it took some time for us to get all the data for this. But if you compare it to the, let's say, iPhone's process, where they have this formal vetting process, and you don't know when it's going to get on the market, crowdsourcing can do better. Also, to add to your question, crowdsourcing cost, at least how we studied it, costs real money. But what we were thinking that maybe some of the costs what you already need to pay to get an app to the market or get an account to be able to publish could be used for this. So for different kind of application markets, so they are not only Android or Google or Apple, but there's also Amazon now. So they might get a competitive advantage if they are better making sure how the apps you download for their markets behave. So yes.
You could also do it like a catch-up. In other words, when you check out the app, they ask you one question about that app. Are you surprised the flashlight once you're fine grained.
Right.
As part of the downloading the free app.
Yes, yeah, you could integrate that
So
too.
then that would be, you would get an automatic review of everything that was done.
Right, yes. That is really good idea, and I will steal it.
You might get it.
Yes. Anything else? Okay. So then next, I'm just going to quickly mention about this project we are starting with. So there's from WINLAB, there's me and Marco from there, and also from Sky more now, and we have a collaborator, Peter Mason from Stevens. So we're yes. So the project name is Local Community Crowdsourcing with Mermex, and the motivation for this project is that we have almost ubiquity of location-enabled devices. So soon, so even though today we have location sensors on phones, we call them smartphones, but soon what we today call feature phones will have some sort of capability to sense the location. Another motivation for this particular project is that we have, as published in Science, 93% potential predictability in user mobility. So people's roaming patterns are not very random, so they're actually really predictable. So you go from home to work, work to home, you step by groceries, etc., etc. Now, what we want to leverage this knowledge is to crowdsource real-world tasks. So the privacy project and Mechanical Turk I talked about is about online tasks, but can we bring the same idea to the real world? So for example, could somebody go to USPS for you? And to do this, we would be predicting participant locations and offer location-constrained tasks opportunistically to people. So for example, predict that 10 people are likely to be near the USPS, so could they pick up mail for you? Well, if you were listening what I was just saying, you might think that there's also trust issue here, so you might not want to anybody to pick your mail for you, etc. So there's lots of challenges and opportunities. So how do we do this in a privacy-preserving way? How do we build these location models, also privacy-preserving? What are the trust issues? So what kind of tasks in people in general want to trust this kind of system, and how do we find people who will do this in a trustworthy manner? Incentives to do this. So in Mechanical Turk, where people are paid money to do a task. What we want to really do is to build social capital. So maybe if I do a task for Rich, and maybe Rich does a task for Marco, and somebody does a task for Marco, we don't need to necessarily to do tasks for each other, but maybe we are happy enough with the system that to pause tasks and also do something for others. And also systems questions that how do we efficiently route these tasks to correct people, etc., because they're location constraints. Now, so these are challenges. Opportunities this project is that maybe we can build stronger communities. So one of the things we know about Western society is that in lots of places people don't really hug their neighbors. So homes are places where you go and don't observe who are living nearby you. This is not the case for everybody, but this happens often. So what we're going to try out that, well, maybe we can build this kind of local community, social capital, and start with, for example, some high-rise dorms in Rutgers, and use this technology to get students to know each other better. And hopefully, one of the results would be that everybody would be saving time and also using less gas to run their daily and weekly errands. So this was just a really quick overview what we are just now starting the work on, and there's lots of challenges and opportunities. And with that, I'd like to advertise that there's research opportunities available. So there's, especially if you don't have the pass for your summer internship yet, or you're considering something for the fall, there's systems implementation, user interface systems implementation, Android and iPhone apps. Also, if you happen to be interested also trying out human factor studies, doing surveys, and user studies, that's also an opportunity. So if you're interested, send an email with your up-to-date CV to my email address, or just step by my office, which is the, if you enter the door from there, it's just straight across the aisle. And so with this, thank you, and I'll take if there's any more questions.